Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So with a bunch of new changes coming to the PvE and soon to be on the live servers as well, I've been getting a lot of people asking me what exactly is a Z build now, what do you get, what kind of masteries do you do? So I thought what better video to make than to simply go over all the potential Z builds that I have in mind, the masteries, the runes and all that good stuff. As a quick disclaimer guys, don't forget that I'm still testing all of these builds out and until it's been on the live server for at least a few weeks and there's no other changes happening to any of the ADC type items or even the masteries, none of these builds are necessarily final, though I do have a pretty decent idea of how they'll probably look like. So we'll talk about 3 different builds in this video. Some of them I'm a lot more confident than others that they will be probably very popular and successful. So the first one I'll talk about is going to be something I'll just simply call the standard build because this is going to be my personal favorite build unless major changes happen. Following that, I'll talk about the old new school build, which is taking the current season 5 popular Z build with the Blade of the Rune King and then transitioning it into season 6 and how it can look like. And the final build I'll talk about is going to be the crit Z build because I do feel like critical strike chance and just damage overall is going to be a popular trend within season 6. This is going to be the least likely Z build that I think will be used, but it's still something worth mentioning. So let's start things off by talking about what I think will be the new standard build, and this is the one that I personally enjoyed the most when testing it on the PvE server. So I think the first best thing to show when talking about any of these builds is actually the build itself and what items to get. So a common trend among all 3 of the builds are going to be the starting items, whether it's a longsword and potions or the new starting item called Cull and a few potions. Now for this build I actually have 6 items listed as core items. Now that's only because I feel like all 6 of them work together really well. But if I were to remove any of these items from this build, it would probably be the Infinity Edge and maybe the Phantom Dancer, in case you want to replace it with one of the other options listed below. So you can notice that there is no Blade of the Rune King in this build because I feel like it's just not as necessary as it is currently. So Youmuu's is 100% going to be your first item in every single build because this item is just so strong, and if you can finish it early on into the game, you'll have a huge power spike. You'll want to then definitely get your boots, and if you're simply just snowballing hardcore mode, you want to probably go for the Infinity Edge next. But if you're not snowballing and you're just doing okay, the Death's Dance is actually not a bad choice, even though it is listed as a defensive item. But other than that, these are the items that I'm talking about in the standard build that I enjoyed the most. So what I do like about this build is that it does have a nice mix of new items and old items, bringing the best of each season into one big build, with the exception of Blade of the Rune King in this build. And this build focuses on getting the raw damage early on into the game, so the Youmuu's and probably the Death's Dance, because it does have a very strong build path giving you a good amount of AD. And once you have that nice early to mid game AD and you can just simply pick off kills without too many problems, as the game continues to scale, well that's when you start building the crits, so the Infinity Edge and the Phantom Dancer. This is when you're going to need that extra spike of damage, so if you crit you'll do an insane amount of damage, you'll have 50% crit with those 2 items, and you'll have very strong dueling power and split pushing power thanks to the Phantom Dancer. It's just an overall strong build with strong items that transitions from each point of the game accordingly based on the item that you're getting next. Now the masteries that I'm running for this build, I'm sure everyone is wondering, is going to be 18 in Ferocity, 12 in Cunning, and absolutely nothing in Resolve. I think for the most part this build should be fairly simple to understand why I chose what I did. The only one that might confuse people is why I chose in the 3rd line of the Ferocity tree the lifesteal over the flat AD. Well, the flat AD talent only gives you 10 AD at level 18, which doesn't seem like it's that good. And I didn't choose to get the critical strike mastery at the bottom of the Ferocity tree because you simply won't have any critical strike until mid to late game. So you'd rather have that extra early game power with the other talent. And here are the runes very quickly that I run for this build. I have 5% CDR at level 18 in the blues and the rest are MR per level. The reason for this is because I'm not running Black Cleaver in this build, but if you so choose then you don't need any CDR blues. So with this you'll have 25% CDR, and then if you so choose you can also get the boots of Lucidity and exactly hit 40%. Alright guys, so that's the first build that I wanted to talk about with you that I personally again enjoyed the most and I do think will be potentially the strongest. But next let's move into the second build I'll discuss with you guys. That's going to be the old new school Z build. So again, the starting items have not changed, but the core items definitely have. So like I said, you still definitely want that Youmuu's because it is absolutely core on Z now. Following the Youmuu's, then you want to get that Blade of the Rune King because again, we're bringing the old school into the new school, and Blade of the Rune King is the standard item in the old school Z build, or I guess the current season 5 one. Black Cleaver is almost a must in this build, followed by a nice sort of defensive but overall strong Death's Dance. Now you might be wondering, why don't I have the Last Whisper item in the core items? Well, the first thing is that I don't think the new Last Whisper items are all that good because it only penetrates bonus armor, not total armor. And you also have the Black Cleaver, which does do 30% total armor, which for the most part will be better. So unless the enemy team is just stacking an absolute abundance of armor, the Black Cleaver will probably be enough. And another option, if you so choose, is to remove the Blade of the Rune King and replace it with the gorgeous Tiamat or Hydra. But other than that, this is how this build is looking. So again, I do highly recommend this build if you're just a huge fan of Blade of the Rune King on Zed and you just cannot play him without it. And I mean, for the most part, this is still a very strong and well-rounded build, taking the best item of Season 6 in my opinion for 80 champions, that's Dance, and transitioning it into this build as well. And the new Phantom Dancer at the end of that build could also be very strong because you'll have so much crazy dueling power. So even though I don't think this is the #1 build for Zed, it's definitely not far from being it. It is almost just as strong as the standard build I just talked about, but again, if you do prefer the Bork, you want to use this build. But like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, nothing is final. I could be wrong on some of the things I'm saying. This is just my thoughts from playing Zed on the PvE for several games. The mastery page for this build is actually the exact same because again, there's not a whole lot of critical strike chance happening in this build. And the runes are also very similar, but there's absolutely no CDR in the blues because you have 20% from your Black Cleaver, you have 10% from your Youmu's, and you have 10% from Death's Dance, that's 40%. So now that we got the probably 2 core Zed builds for Season 6 out of the way, let's talk about an experimental build that I'm still trying out. Again, the purpose of this build is to try and fit what I think will be the meta for Season 6, being a lot of critical strike chance and damage. So the starting items are still the same and the Youmu's is still a core item. But then you get the Static Shift as your second item because this item has overall been increased in terms of strength in my opinion. And you're going to combine that later on with the Phantom Dancer and the Infinity Edge. With those 3 items, you'll have 80% crit chance. Now, even though you definitely don't need the 100%, if you're absolutely craving it, then maybe removing the Black Cleaver or maybe the Youmu's for a Trinity Force because it now gives 20% crit could work. Again, guys, I'm still heavily experimenting with this build to the point where I may remove the Static Shift altogether and replace it with maybe the Trinity Force or just nothing at all and instead put another flat AD item. So again, the purpose of this build is to fit in what I think will be the meta of Season 6. The early to mid-game power spike of Youmu's and Shiv will be very strong just because of the raw damage you'll have from the Youmu's and the Shiv's auto attack proc, which is dealt as magic damage, which if you have your ultimate on the target will continue doing even more damage. The issue is that there are very little defensive items in this build, the only one being Black Cleaver if you so choose to get it. But this is definitely more of a for fun type build and not something that you should take super seriously. So the only change in the masteries is going to be at the very bottom of the ferocity tree, taking the crit talent instead of the flat AD one. And for the runes, since I don't have Death's Dance as a core item, I have 10% CDR at level 18, because with the 10% here, the 20% from Black Cleaver, and the 10% from Youmu's, that's 40%. But if you don't care much for 40% CDR on Zed, then you can simply replace the blues with just flat MR or MR per level and have no CDR there. But that is about it for this video, guys. I mean, a lot of people have been asking me, what exactly do you do for Zed for Season 6? What items? What are the best options? What are the runes, the masteries? Well, there you have it. I did play quite a few games on the PvE as Zed to experiment, but again, this is nothing final because until it comes out on the live servers, assuming there's no more changes, I'll be further testing these builds in harder games in ranked, on the lower ping as well, and just overall more games. So once Season 6 finally does roll out to the live servers, I'll eventually update this video to let you guys know exactly what I'm almost confident will be or is the current strongest Zed build. But this is at the moment what I'm thinking of right now. So I hope I did finally answer your questions, and if you did enjoy this video, guys, definitely hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. Check out my other videos as well, and the ones covering the new changes on the PvE, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.